Friday, December 2nd. Let's see, book report is due early a week from today. The test corrections are still going on for those of you who need them. And I'll stop putting it up there. You're still welcome to do them, and I'll leave the mythology page up, but I'm not going to keep reminding you. The quiz on Monday goes up to, not page 89 for you guys, it goes up to chapter 4. It might be page 89. It's right around there, page 69. 69?
Yeah.
20 pages off. 69.
Oh, it's a mistake.
That would be a mistake, but that's an actual legit mistake. And then the tie game is Penguin. That one, there, we got into different characters. So we left off with them at the drive-in.
Yeah.
And what greasers are at the drive-in?
The 2-bit, Johnny Boy and Johnny.
Johnny.
Who's Johnny Boy?
Tony Boy, Johnny, let's go.
And 2-bit.
And then 2-bit shows up later. Who is it they run into while they're there?
Cherry and Jackie.
Cherry and Marcia. Then, how is it that Dally gets along with them? He brings her a drink, and how does she react to that? She does. And who steals the pool?
Dally.
Went to the drive-in, did the drive-in, found out the gas jockey.
Yep.
We haven't gotten to the Blue Mustang.
Oh no.
The Blue Mustang. We are on page 28.
Oh, is that pickup?
Sorry, kid. I forgot. He climbed over the chair and plopped down beside Marcia. Who's this? Your great aunts? Great-grandmothers, twice removed, Cherry said smoothly. I couldn't tell if 2-bit was drunk or not. It's kind of hard to tell with him. He acts boozed up sometimes, even when he's sober. He cocked one eyebrow up and the other down, which he always does when something puzzles him, or bothers him, or when he feels like saying something smart. Shoot, you're 96 if you're a day. I'm a night, Marcia said brightly. 2-bit stared at her admiringly. Brother, you're a sharp one. Where'd you two ever get to be picked up by a couple of greasy hoods like Pony and Johnny? We really picked them up. We're really Arabian slave traders. We're thinking about shanghaiing them. They're worth 10 camels apiece at least. 5, 2-bit disagreed. They don't talk Arabian, I don't think. Say something in Arabian, Johnny Cake. The confusing part they're going through is what's happening right now with 2-bit and Marcia, is they're doing this thing called flirting. When you do flirting, it sounds like you're really witty and everything is really funny. Everyone who listens to you flirt thinks you sound like an idiot. So that's what's happening here, is they're doing this whole, I'm so witty and I'm really funny. And you're going, no, you just sound like an idiot. So whenever you try to participate in the flirty thing, that's what's going to happen too. You're going to think you're hilarious. Everyone around you's like, you're an idiot.
Does that happen to you?
Someday, all the time. Although now I'm just still an idiot. Oh, cut it out, Johnny broke in. Dally was bothering them, and when he left, they wanted us to sit with him to protect him against wisecracking greasers like you, probably. 2-bit grinned, because Johnny didn't usually get sassy like that. We thought we were doing good if we could get him to talk at all. Incidentally, we don't mind being called greaser by another greaser. It's kind of playful then. Hey, where is old Dally anyway? He went hunting some action, booze or dames or a fight. I hope he don't get jailed again. I mean, he just got out. He'll probably find the fight, 2-bit stated cheerfully. And that's why I came over. Mr. Timothy Shepard and company are looking for whoever so kindly slashed their car's tires. And since Mr. Curly Shepard spotted Dally doing it, well, does Dally have a blade? Not that I know of. I think he's got a piece of pipe, but he busted his blade this morning. Good. Tim will fight fair if Dally don't pull a blade on him. Dally shouldn't have any trouble. Cherry and Marcia were staring at us. You don't believe in playing rough or anything, do you? No, a fair fight isn't rough, 2-bit said. Blades are rough. So are chains and heaters and pool sticks and rumbles. Skin fighting isn't rough. It blows off steam better than anything. There's nothing wrong with throwing a few punches. Socias are rough. They gang up on one or two, or they rumble each other with their social clubs. Us greasers, we usually stick together. But when we do fight among ourselves, it's a fair fight between two, and Dally deserves whatever he gets, because slashed tires ain't no joke when you got to work to pay for them. He got spotted, too, and that was his fault. Our one rule, besides stick together, is don't get caught. You might get beat up, you might not. Either way, there's not going to be any blood feud between our outfit and Shepherd's. If we needed them tomorrow, they'd show. If Tim beats Dowley's head in and then tomorrow asks us for help in a rumble, we'll show. Dowley was getting kicks, he got caught, he pays up. No sweat. Yeah, boy, Cherry said sarcastically. Real simple. Sure. If he gets killed or something, you just bury him. No sweat. You dig okay, baby? Two-Bit grinned and lit a cigarette. Anyone want a weed? This weed is not marijuana weed. This weed is tobacco weed. Because tobacco is also a type of weed. This is before marijuana was popular. I looked at Two-Bit admiringly. Man, he sure put things into words good. Maybe he was still a junior at 18 and a half, and maybe his sideburns were too long, and maybe he did get boozed up too much, but he sure understood things. Cherry and Marcia shook their heads at his offering of cigarettes, but Johnny and I reached for one. Johnny's color was back, and his breathing was regular, but his hand was shaking ever so slightly. A cigarette would steady it. Pony boy, will you come with me to get some popcorn? I jumped up. Sure. Y'all want some? I do, said Marcia. She was finishing the Coke Dowley had given her. I realized then that Marcia and Cherry weren't alike. Cherry had said that she wouldn't drink Dowley's Coke if she was starving, and she meant it. It was the principle of her thing. But Marcia saw no reason to throw away a perfectly good free Coke. Me too, said Two-Bit, and he flipped me a 50-cent piece. Yeah, get Johnny some too, I'm buying. Yeah, as Johnny started to reach into his jeans pocket. We went into the concession stand, and as usual, there was a line a mile long, so we had to wait. Quite a few kids turned to look at us. I mean, you didn't see a kid Grease and a Soci cheerleader together often. Cherry didn't seem to even notice. Your friend, the one with the sideburns, he's okay? He ain't dangerous like Dallas, if that's what you mean. Yeah, he's okay. She smiled, and her eyes showed that her mind was on something else. Johnny, he's been hurt bad sometime, hasn't he? It was more of a statement than a question. Hurt and scared? It was the Socias, I said nervously, because there were plenty of Socias milling around, and some of them were giving me funny looks, as if I shouldn't be with Cherry or something. And I don't like to talk about it either. Johnny getting beat up, I mean. But I started in, talking a little faster than I usually do, because I don't like to think about it either. It was almost 4 months ago. I'd walk down to the DX station to get a bottle of pop and see Steve and soda, because they'd always buy me a couple of bottles and let me help work on the cars. I don't like to go on weekends, because then there's usually a bunch of girls down there flirting with soda. All kinds of girls, too. Socials. I don't care too much for girls yet. Soda says I'll grow out of it. He did. It was a warmish spring day with the sun shining bright, but it was getting chilly and dark by the time we started for home. We were walking because we left Steve's car at the station. At the corner of our block, there's a wide open field where we play football and hang out, and it's often a site for rumbles and fistfights. We were passing it, kicking rocks down the street, and finishing our last bottle of Pepsi, when Steve noticed something lying on the ground. He picked it up. It was Johnny's blue jeans jacket, the only jacket he had. Looks like Johnny forgot his jacket, Steve said, slinging it over his shoulder to take it by Johnny's house. Suddenly he stopped and examined it more carefully. There was a stain in the color of rust across the collar. He looked at the ground. There were some more stains on the grass. He looked up and across the field with a stricken expression on his face. I think we all heard the low moan and saw the dark, motionless hump on the other side of the lot at the same time. Soda reached him first. Johnny was laying face down on the ground. Soda turned him over gently, and I nearly got sick. Someone had beaten him badly. We were used to seeing Johnny banged up. His father clobbered him around a lot, and although it made us madder than heck, we couldn't do anything about it. But those beatings had been nothing like this. Johnny's face was cut up and bruised and swollen, and there was a wide gash from his temple to his cheekbone. He would carry that scar all his life. His white t-shirt was splattered with blood. I just stood there, trembling with sudden cold. I thought he might be dead. I mean, surely nobody could be beaten like that and live. Steve closed his eyes for a second and muffled a groan as he dropped on his knees beside Soda. Somehow the gang sensed what had happened. Two-Bit was suddenly there beside me, and for once his comical grin was gone, and his dancing gray eyes were stormy. Derry had seen us from our porch and ran toward us, suddenly skidding to a halt. Dally was there too, swearing under his breath and turning away with a sick expression on his face. I wondered about it vaguely. Dally had seen people killed on the streets of New York's West Side. Why did he look sick now? Johnny? Soda lifted him up and held him against his shoulder. He gave the limp body a slight shake. Hey, Johnny Cake? Johnny didn't open his eyes, but there came a soft question. Soda? Yeah, it's me. Oh, don't talk. You're going to be okay. There was a whole bunch of... Johnny went on, swallowing, ignoring Soda's command. A blue Mustang full. I got so scared. He tried to swear. That's the blue Mustang he's talking about. He tried to swear, but suddenly started crying, fighting to control himself, and then sobbing all the more because he couldn't. I had seen Johnny take a whipping with a 2x4 from his old man and never let out a whimper. That made it worse to see him break now. Soda just held him and pushed Johnny's hair back out of his eyes. It's okay, Johnny Cake. They're gone now. It's okay. Finally, between sobs, Johnny managed to gasp out his story. He'd been hunting for our football, to practice a few kicks, when a blue Mustang had pulled up beside the lot. There were 4 Socias in it. They'd caught him, and one of them had a lot of rings on his hand. That's what had cut Johnny up so badly. It wasn't just that they'd beaten him half to death. He could take that. They'd scared him. They'd threatened him with everything under the sun. Johnny was high-strung anyway, a nervous wreck from getting belted every time he turned around and from hearing his parents fight all the time. Living in those conditions might have turned someone else rebellious and bitter. It was killing Johnny. He'd never been a coward. He was a good man in a rumble. He stuck up for the gang and kept his mouth shut good around cops. But after the night of the beating, Johnny was jumpier than ever. I didn't think he'd ever get over it. Johnny never walked by himself after that. And Johnny, who was the most law-abiding of us, now carried in his back pocket a 6-inch switchblade. He'd use it, too, if he ever got jumped again. They had scared him that much. He would kill the next person who jumped him. Nobody was ever going to beat him like that again. Not over his dead body. A couple things. One, the blue Mustang. What was the identifying feature of the kid who beat him up?
Rings.
A whole bunch of rings. Keep that in mind, because that's going to come back to us in a little bit, too.
Oh, I know what it is.
And then from there, do you guys know what foreshadowing is?
Yeah.
Those little hints in the story. That last 2 sentences,
That's foreshadowing.
that's what they are foreshadowing also. So the idea that anytime now that he's all jumpy, and what does he carry around with him?
Switchblade.
I can show it to you again if you need to see the switchblade. Just let me know. They all seem really eager for you to see the switchblade.
Wait, is yours
No, it's much, much shorter. 6 inches is like, that's like how long the blade is. That's about 6 inches. Mine's like 2.5 inches, something like that. Mine's just for little stabbings. His is for big stabbings.
Okay.
No. I'll finish chapter 2. We have 2 more pages. Then I'll let you guys read. We're getting to the good stuff. I had nearly forgotten that Cherry was listening to me. But when I came back to reality and looked at her, I was startled to find her as white as a sheet. All Socias aren't like that. You have to believe me, Pony Boy. Not all of us are like that. Sure. Come on, that's like saying all you greasers are like Dallas Winston. I'll bet he's jumped a few people. I digested that. It was true. Dally had jumped people. He had told us stories about muggings in New York that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But not all of us were that bad. Cherry no longer looked sick, only sad. I'll bet you think the Socias have it made. The rich kids, the West Side Socias. I'll tell you something, Pony Boy, and it may come as a surprise. We have troubles you've never ever even heard of. You want to know something? She looked me straight in the eye. Things are rough all over. I believe you. Anyway, we better get back out there with the popcorn, or Two-Bit will think I ran off with his money. We went back and watched the movie through again. Marcia and Two-Bit were hitting it off fine. Both had the same scatterbrained sense of humor. But Cherry and Johnny and I just sat there, looking at the movie and not talking. I quit worrying about everything and thought about how nice it was to sit with a girl without having to listen to her swear, to beat her off with a club. I knew Johnny liked it too. He didn't talk to girls much. Once, while Dallas was in reform school, Sylvia started hanging on to Johnny and sweet-talking him. And Steve got hold of her and told her if she tried any of her tricks with Johnny, he'd personally beat the tar out of her. Then he gave Johnny a lecture on girls and how a sneaking little broad like Sylvia would get him into a lot of trouble. As a result, Johnny never spoke to girls much. But whether that was because he was scared of Steve or because he was shy, I couldn't tell. I got the same lecture from Two-Bit after we picked up a couple of girls downtown one day. I thought it was funny because girls are one subject even Derry thinks I use my head about. And it really had been funny because Two-Bit was half crocked when he gave me the lecture. And he told me some stories that about made me want to crawl under the floor or something. But he'd been talking about girls like Sylvia and the girls he and Dally and the rest picked up at drive-ins and downtown. He never said anything about Sochi girls. So I figured it was all right to be sitting there with them, even if they did have their own troubles. I really couldn't see what Sochi would have to be sweat about. Good grades, good cars, good girls, Madras, Mustangs, and Corvairs. Man, I thought, if I had worries like that, I'd consider myself lucky. But I know better now. More foreshadowing.
Is he going to get rich?
Before I let you guys start reading on your own, there's a couple things coming up I want to at least preview with you to help you out. They're going to make fun of a kid coming up for saying that he has a Beatles haircut. Because at the time, everyone had really short hair. Like all the Socias had like my kind of hair, or maybe a little bit longer. Maybe like the long-haired ones have like Suscubus length. Like, oh, you have some long hair. But now, longer hair is a much bigger thing. And so a Beatles haircut was like the big floppy hair, like the bangs that come over and cover you. And so they're going to talk about a kid who has a Beatles haircut. So that's what they're talking about. They're also, I mentioned before, the busted pop bottle. That's coming up. There's just a throwdown coming up between some of them. And so one of them picks up a pop bottle and smashes it and gets ready to throw down and fight. And so that's what it is. When you stab someone with a pop bottle, as I'm sure you'll find out someday, it doesn't make like a straight thing. It makes little scratchy marks because it's got the little circular bits. So that was a picture. That's a belly button. So that was someone who had gotten slashed with a pop bottle like that. They talk about them going and playing snooker, which is like pool, but it doesn't have any pockets for the balls to go in usually. It just sort of bounces around. And so that's, I don't know. And they're also going to talk about this fountain coming up where there's a water fountain where they're going to have a fight and one of the kids gets thrown into a water fountain. But it's not like the water fountain we have here, like the blah, blah, blah. It's like a water fountain. So like that's the kind of water fountain they get put into. Because like our water fountain, you can't really put someone into that. You like sit on top of it. But here, when they put someone into the water fountain, because it's a water fountain. And so you can like bleh, and put them into it. Blue jeans jackets were popular, so they're going to be wearing those coming out. And then they're going to talk about music. Hank Williams, which is old hillbilly country music. They're going to talk about Elvis Presley. And then they're going to talk about the fact that the Socias like the Beatles. And so those were some of the things I was going to throw out there for you. When you get to chapter 4, that's when the big stuff happens. Chapter 3, we get a little preview of the big stuff, and then chapter 4, the big stuff happens. And then from there, it just keeps ramping up. What you're going to have now is other kids have read this book. There are big things that happen in this book. I will tell you now, people die. Main characters die. There are big, sad, life-changing parts that are going to happen. If you tell someone that you are reading this book and they have read this book, they will try to spoil it for you. So I'm telling you that now. Be prepared. If you can, avoid it. Just like Webb's avoiding keeping his points by making noise. Avoid letting people know that you're reading it. Or if you can, don't let them start telling you, oh yeah, they all died. The aliens come down. They're all going to get killed by the space wreck. Whatever it is, don't let them try to ruin it. Along those same lines, don't you ruin it for people. Because if I find out you are horrible children ruining it for people, I will be mean to you. So that's part of the fun of this book, is you figure out what happens in it, because there's big things which make people remember the book, and I don't want you ruining it for others. And if other people ruin it for you, if they're in this class, then I will torture them. If they're in other classes, then that's your fault for talking to them because they're idiots. Lonnie. If they're your sister, then you should just get rid of her. Not much I can help you on that one. She's just a horrible person. Just run around the house going, no, the entire time. Like I said, horrible person. Wrong, Meyer.